Okay, we are live for a 6 o'clock panel with a very amazing group, very powerful women. I'm very excited to bring them on. We love to be on time, so it's 6:01 and I'll get going. I know that a lot of you are new to Kids and Art, and if you have already heard my spiel, I'm sorry. But otherwise, hello, I'm Purvi Shah. I'm the founder of Kids and Art Foundation. I started the organization in 2008. Once my son, who was 3 years old, was diagnosed with cancer, I really did not know what to do. I was a graphic designer, and all I knew was to do art. And that's really how the organization started, just for my son, for myself, and his sibling, to distract ourselves. And I had never expected that we would make it a big organization. We are celebrating our 12th year. And we have worked with families all around the Bay Area. And we have weekly workshops at UCSF Benioff Children's Hospital and Stanford Children's Hospital. And we do workshops for critical care patients, for young adults, and for our bereaved families. Of course, COVID has changed things. So from March, we moved all our workshops online on Zoom. And this is the 25th week that we've been conducting our workshops on Zoom. And I am just amazed that we learned a lot of new things. The biggest thing was that the kids are really creating a community, and we did not know that that would happen. And they love being there, and they look out for each other, and they wait for each other. It's just been a blessing in disguise. We've also started creating art lessons on YouTube, and we send them off to our hospital partners so that they can share those workshops with the patients who are in the hospital by bedside. And we make sure that all our workshops are very simple. You can do it, we say kitchen table, anything that's in your kitchen drawer, that's all you need. And for the hospital patients, we try to make sure that the workshops are very simple so they don't get overwhelmed. And one last thing I'll say before I introduce my panelists, fireside chat, is that now we have patients working with us or creating with us from Alaska and Michigan and beyond. And we also have patients who create with us directly from their hospital bed. So, COVID has a silver lining. That's all I'll say. So, welcome everyone. And without further ado, I want to introduce Kate Byrne and Sunny Slaughter. Kate is the president of Intentional SOCAP Global, a purpose-driven platform. Kate brings her deep knowledge of cutting-edge technology, integrative marketing, and digital publishing to generate impactful revenue, create innovative partnerships, and promote social good. In 2011, Kate was named to the prestigious Folio 40, being recognized as one of the 40 most influential top media industry performers. She serves as a president of the board of the U.S. National Committee for UN, San Francisco chapter, as commissioner on the Marin County Commission for Women and Girls, Concord Consortium, and is an active member of the Opportunity Collaboration. Kate graduated from Stanford University with a BA in psychology. Kate, welcome.
Thank you, Purvi.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Our next guest is Sunnetta Sunny Slaughter. She's the CEO of Sunny Slaughter Consulting. As a vulnerability expert, TEDx speaker, and master connector, she brings over 35 years of executive consultancy and tactical guidance to a cross-section of professionals in business, corporate, college, and community. Sunny was recently featured as one of DC's top women business leader of 2020 in Women Leadership Magazine USA. Her role on the Leaders Advisory Council of the Women's Business Collaborative ensures her voice and perspective on the marginalization of Black women in business. The White House Obama administration has recognized her for her work in human trafficking, and a report on the state of health of Alabama for the U.S. General Surgeon was included in the daily briefing of President Obama. Sunny has served as an on-camera crime and police analyst for radio, print, and television media outlets. She has also been involved in the 1619 project launched by the New York Times Magazine that re-examines slavery in the US. If this doesn't tell you that this is a power duo, then nothing will. So welcome, both of you.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to get started.
Me too. All right, Sunny. We find ourselves together. I just want to give a little history of our friendship and our partnership. We met through Friends of Friends through the New York Times Read Along Project, which is a terrific online program that literally you read the New York Times together. It's started by Sri Srivastava, and it's 5:30 for those of us who are out here on the West Coast, 8:30 because those people on the East Coast still can never get the time change right. So we followed the board for you, but that's where our paths first crossed. And now, seriously, just think 6 months later, what we've been through.
I know.
All that's happened. I want the group to recognize Sunny in the most recent awards. I'm not worthy. She was just inducted in the 2020 Community Service Award for the American Public Health Workers. So, Sunny, what I wanted to kind of start with was we called this conversation the crossroads between art and business and health.
Right.
What do you think it powers up? Like, what is the role of art? I was writing an interview the other day, and someone was saying, okay, well, what do you think what does arts and culture have to do with business? And what does it have to do then with health? And what can we do to ensure that this creates a thriving economy and that it's safe and it's funded? What do you think its role is?
Well, Kate, that's a great question. And I've been thinking all day kind of how we would have this conversation and how it would unfold. And when I think about business and the world of business and how much people are every day, someone is doing something that's in business, and they're either going, well, many people are not going to the office, but the office has really come into our homes now. But people are striving to advance the economy in so many different directions and in so many ways. And with COVID-19, the stressors of all that has happened has really, I think, brought the lens of human kindness and generosity. And I think that's where business has played a role, really on a larger scale, in trying to come up with ways to change the dynamics of all that people are going through, not just financially, but how can they contribute to the inner workings of humanity. And then when you think about art and how soothing it is, and how it really lays into the health component and strength of where we have to pull sometimes when we're at places of pain. And COVID-19 has really caused us to stretch in ways that have been painful and hurtful and harmful. I think all of those things, we kind of need our business professionals and health, and then the arts and music. And you and I were kind of talking about how I love to dance, and it makes everything better.
Exactly. I was thinking about how in these days, in these times, when there is such pain and havoc and confusion and chaos, that really we're being called upon to come forward with a beginner's mind, but a master's heart. So what fuels that master's heart? And in my mind, it is, I think art and music and culture has an opportunity to do that, because I've been saying this quote all day today from The Little Prince. The heart sees what the eyes miss.
Yes.
And I think, given all the incredible social unrest as well, that art is this opportunity where you can have an individual experience with it, but then you can also have a collective, right?
Right.
And so how can we utilize that to really encourage innovation? And I'm going to go beyond innovation. I'm going to say transformation, because I think that's right. And so
I was thinking about that word too, transforming, how we, because we're so divided, I think art and culture kind of brings us together in ways where it becomes a universal language and way to communicate. And so, before we were coming on, we were talking about, Purvi said about our colors and representing RGB, the notorious. And when you look at all of the murals that have gone up so quickly in places, the art on walls and people just really showing homage and honoring her in such a way. And even her name, when notorious, Biggie Smalls, that whole unique with the, and she really jumped into that as well. I think it's a whole.
Yeah, I think it's a melding. I think it's a great opportunity now, because I think everyone agrees in what we've also started to see. COVID-19 has also been so non-discriminating. It is hitting everybody. And so it's the situations where one loses another, just like cancer. There's this instant club that happens. Now, I know cancer's played a big role. I know Purvi talked about it. I've had my experience. I know we both lost our mothers to cancer.
Yes.
My dad as well. But you've had some other sort of in-depth where you've utilized art to help some of the work you did in the past, right? With Make-A-Wish and some of those.
Right. So I used to be on the Make-A-Wish Foundation, the board for the Alabama and Georgia board. And unfortunately, I have known adults and children who have been impacted by cancer. I mean, like just in this large swath of things. But Benjamin was 5 years old in Children's Hospital of Alabama. He had a wish to make snow angels. So, that whole drawing in the snow. Well, it was the summertime.
Oh,
and I was not even on the board anymore. However, I got a phone call because I'm also a law enforcement instructor with the Department of Homeland Security. And my brother, Mike Goddard, he calls and said, hey, we got to pull together this wish. So there was a place in Florida that was a resort that made snow. So we're on the phone saying, do you think there's a way we can get snow up here so he can make snow angels? Well, it turns out the owners, one of them was from New Jersey, where I'm from. So they literally packed a U-Haul truck, insulated, packed it with snow. We got the Florida Sheriff's Department to drive them lights and sirens to the state line, met up with the Alabama sheriffs, drove them into the hospital, and it was like 5 o'clock in the morning. We're in shorts, and we're out at the hospital shoveling snow into this particular area for Benjamin.
All for a little.
He was too ill, unfortunately, but his mom said, bring him down in the wheelchair. But his mother and sister got into the snow.
Oh, nice. So then he was able to see that.
Able to see that. And when all of my friends and Mike's wife, Norlin, who's my sister, when she got cancer, and my friends who are adults, I've always taken coloring books to the hospital.
Yep.
So I get a big stack of coloring books, and when they be in the hospital, so I'd have lots of crayons, and everyone that came up to visit would have to color a page and then write their names on it, and all of them would hang up for as long as the person was in the hospital.
Well, it's funny, I often wonder, I think about this, especially as I know we're going to be called upon to work a lot in the future in cross-sector teams that we're not used to working with. Many of us are going to have to work with others who come from different professions, the vernacular we don't necessarily understand. And reminds me of when my eldest daughter, Liza, we were taking her in to look at some different types of schools. And I took her in, and Liza was always, both my girls, their comfort go-to zone was art. Because as Purvi was mentioning earlier, it had to do with just distracting and kind of getting centered and focused, and then you could be free and flowing. Do you think that's something that we can start to practice with adults? I mean, do you think that adults have the courage to make themselves vulnerable that way by just sort of drawing and not having to draw a picture like within the lines? And if we did, how would that impact either ideas? How would it impact, racial equity issues that happen within a company? Do you think it could be something that could be used, as we've been saying, sort of as the intersection of business to sort of open up a conversation and kind of pave the way?
I think that's a great idea. And I really think, I think the art really could do that, because it would put everyone on a level playing field.
Mm-hmm.
And people could really bring themselves into a space where they're not talking about the issue. They're kind of coloring and just free flowing and really bonding over the things that of our childhood, of our youth, that make us innocent. And being vulnerable, I think as adults, we don't want to be vulnerable, because but when we go to our inner child and we don't even understand where vulnerability is, I think that that is innocent. And I think you just came up with another way to transform conversations. I'm working on having some of these racial equity conversations. And I think that I will attribute this to you.
Yeah.
No, seriously, how we can, and to Kids&Art. I could really introduce this into the conversation. And the innovation pieces, because we all have to do this, virtually, because we're not really coming together. But then people can be free in their homes nobody has to, if they don't want to show it, they don't have to show it, but they can be free.
Can I just say one quick thing?
Yeah.
Regarding to health and business. I'm also just wondering, because now, as we all just said, business is in our home. And this increase of mental health challenge and depression and the COVID fog. And now, we're all going to be here probably for another year.
Yes.
I'll be really curious to see how that shifts, how this year differs. Because I actually do think that this year, as hard as it has been, it has made all of us slow down.
Yes.
It's made all of us take a beat. It's made all of us get really clear, or beginning to get more clear, kind of to surrender and to get really clear on what matters and what's important. And also every structure of business systems all taken down to studs. And now we have this opportunity to really build up and come together and build up. And I think art can really play a big role in that.
I do too. Purvi, you had something?
Sorry.
I had to jump in. I know.
No, join us.
Conversation is so close to things that we go through. Something you talked about, equity and accessibility and vulnerability. We learned that from our Zoom workshops. We did not realize that. Someone just said that, it's a level playing field. Doesn't matter where everyone is, who they are, they're all going through the same thing. Yeah. And our program managers and we sat down and said, that is so true. We never looked at it that way, that we are all suffering in the same way or co-creating in the same way.
Exactly. Right. And I think, to me, there's a certain intimacy because we're all in each other's homes.
Yeah.
We're all witnessing the humanity. My dog just burst in and left. My boyfriend closed the door because I'm loud. right? How many times have we seen little coworkers, little kids clunk it? You know
Yes.
what I mean? The other day, my dog came in right in the middle of I was doing this big webinar, and he literally threw up at my feet. I had to pretend gracefully that no one was hearing his. So, the
Well, look at
humanity of it all.
yes,
But
but
I
the
love
other
that.
day with my hair, remember I was looking an absolute mess, and I was like, "Oh, I just think it's okay to be." I think business leaders, and I put this out. It is okay to be vulnerable because it shows that you are human and that this reality of life that we're all going through. 2020 vision, our eyes. This has been a year, a real reckoning, a real health challenges. I've even had my health challenges, and things are happening to all of us at the same time. And art allows us to be free, even though we're kind of closed in.
Right. And it just express it. And I think, to me, it's no small. And I'm going to build off what you mentioned, Purvi, the fact that we are all going through this simultaneously, right?
Yeah.
And there is the regenerative economy, right? The mycelium web where we're all connected.
Mm-hmm.
What was that movie, The Marvelous Fungi or whatever, Fantastic Fungi. And it demonstrates that we are all, when this part goes, the elbow bone's connected to the thigh bone kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think there's no mistake why now people from a business standpoint, and I come from the world of social impact and capital, but there are 5 different types of capital. Yes, there's financial, but there's also reputational, social, intellectual, and political. And we all have access to all 5 types, but it's that cross-teaming sector that we're going to need to work together on.
Right.
But I think it's no mistake that people are really starting to look at stakeholder capitalism, meaning, are you taking care of yourself? Are you taking care of your peers? Are you taking care of your community, your company, your product, the earth? And we're going to see a massive shift from corporations, from next gen companies, to drive this kind of change. And I think, again, art can be a muse on those fronts.
Purvi, when you thought about putting together this conference and in this new way, Kate talked earlier about innovation. How difficult was it for you to think about how to do the uplift from the in-person and even the programs? Did you think it was going to connect? Did you think the children and the families would still benefit from it because of the equity? I mean, did you think about those things?
I don't think I went in thinking about equity or accessibility or anything at that point. Our goal was to make sure that we were there for the kids. If they are not able to come to us, we will find a way to go to them. So that was really all that was on my mind. And of course, everything was moving to Zoom. So I'm like, of course, we can do this. And our program managers are just amazing. I threw them, said, we're doing this tomorrow. And they're like, what? And they somehow managed. And we learned over time. This is exactly how our program started. When we started, we didn't know that there are certain rules for neutropenic fingers, that, the kids that have chemo, the sense of smell and touch and everything changes. We learned over time because that's the world we are living in. So we just learned and figured it out, made mistakes, and we were honest that we are learning. So
I think that's where the vulnerability, I don't even think people thought of it like vulnerability, that we were all, remember all of the things people said that you couldn't do? Like I've always kind of worked from home with my business, and then I go to the client as needed. But I always used to try to say, I can serve you without being in the office with you. Well, no, I kind of want you here. All of the things that people said could not be done when the large population of homeless individuals and the way we treat I've had to meet with my doctors 3 different times. Now, we already had telehealth from that public health. And when you think about public health, but I never used it because it would, okay, well, come into the office. Now, okay, well, don't come into the office. I think we are, Kate, you said beginner's mind. I
Yeah,
think we had to have a beginner's mind and really a master's heart and the vision to see that which we could not see. Even
exactly.
like the cure for cancer, we have to keep going forward.
Well, one of the conversations I'd had was speaking of chemo and radiation and the impact and such. Was I had the pleasure to talk with the CEO of Gaia Herbs, and she was explaining how there are certain herbs that they have that they're decimated. They can't. It's going to take 2 years. It's completely gone away. Right. So
Mm,
turmeric is one of them. Right. I mean, you can't, especially when you're really trying to source it responsibly. It's going
what?
to take 2 to 3 years to grow it back. I mean, there are some places you can get it, but it's not as pure. I'm really curious to see what the impact of this is going to be on folks and echinacea and chamomile, but to see what the impact is going to be on folks using both Western and Eastern medicines. Have
Uh,
you heard anything about that, Purvi, in terms of the different types of care that folks are starting to turn into and use?
So, care and treatment for children is very different from care and treatment for an adult who's
Yeah.
going through cancer. Because, children's body is such that their cancer progresses much faster than if you get it when you're an adult. So the doctors are not that comfortable letting you try different things. And even before you try, you're already moving to so many different kinds of treatment, and your protocol is so intense that it is hard. However, having said that, I think there is a huge conversation about nutrition and wellness and exercise and mindfulness. There's a lot of that happening amongst families. It hasn't come into healthcare for children yet, and that's what we are trying to fight. Think about the whole child in treatment and not just this diagnosis. And that's the whole child, right? You have to think about everything that they are ingesting other than the chemo. What is balancing them? What is really going to get them better? So it's not there, but as you
you're,
said, Sunny, we have to keep working on it and it'll happen.
you're very brave. As a mom, and I'm a mom. I've been a single mom with 4 kids, and when I think about my son had asthma, something relatively simple, curable, but you coming up with the idea of family and the importance of how to treat the whole family, that is one of the things when I start talking to individuals and even in business about when we think about the work, say human trafficking, when I would talk about that, and victims, they always said the victim, and I said direct victims and indirect victims,
Mhm. Absolutely.
because people tend to forget. With the criminality, that's one thing, but when you start talking about victimization, and particularly with children, how important it is to understand that the child is one, is might be the direct victim, but all of the siblings and the parents and everyone close to the child, even classmates, then
Mhm.
become
Absolutely.
um, collateral victims, and the victimization and how you treat, how the treatment for the direct victim is one thing, but even for the indirect victims. And I think you've really hit upon something about treating the whole child and the whole family. And from a vulnerability standpoint, I think that's really important because other children get left out when they're other children. And and
Absolutely. And siblings are a big part of our organization for exactly the same reason, because they are the silent warriors in this whole
yep.
game of cancer, right? Means they just get shuttled around. they don't get to live the life that they should because there are no play dates. Your brother or sister is immunocompromised, so you are in lockdown. Pretty much what
Mm-hmm.
people are living right now. And we also have a term called care circle. We do call everyone who's around the child is the care circle, whether it's your neighbors, your best friends, your aunts, uncles, your network, your tribe grows, right? And everyone gets affected. Like if you lose a child, it's going to affect everyone.
Yeah. And Kate, I think that's where the business world comes in and the innovation that you were talking about earlier.
Yeah. Well, I think to me, what's going to be the most interesting is to see the role that art and culture plays in actually informing business and daring it and challenging it to come up with. I just think of it as a Jackson Pollock painting. The different dots that you're connecting.
Yes. Yes.
Steve Jobs said that in his 2005 graduation address to Stanford about, there's going to come a time when, as you're going through your life, you will do some sort of odd job. And then fast forward years, it'll be that critical key linchpin that makes all the difference in your path, in your trajectory. And I think I really am curious to see, I mean, I guess part of me is thinking I want to see people working with their hands more, just because I think that kinesthetic and that. At the same time, I'm curious, I'd actually really be curious to hear what the group thinks about the fact that some kids now are so much more comfortable on the screen, right? With a keyboard. So are they still getting the same benefits? Is it still the same feeling? Do they lose the tactical, whatever that does with neurons and synapses and such? I mean, what do you all think? I know art is art, but I'm really curious. And also phones.
So while people answer, I guess something that we talk about a lot is when we mention art, some of the older kids don't want to be part of it. So when we go in the hospital waiting room and they say, "Oh, art is here today," you'll see the older patients sort of like, turn around or do their own thing. And then suddenly they see the fun that's happening, and then they'll suddenly join us. However, we have gone in infusion rooms where kids are doing the technology, and we'll go in with more technology that has art. Because at some point, we have to meet them where they are, right? But what you're saying about losing that tactile and that connection, I think that kids are finding ways to get back, especially now because they're online so much. That what's fascinating is that they don't want to. When it's time to do something else, they're not playing video games. They are going outside. So maybe, one way or the other, they need that and they are getting it, but we are not seeing it. But right now we are.
Right.
And,
Yeah, I agree.
Just asking, maybe you use the word creation versus art. I don't know. I'm on the board of a small science consortium, and they do online. It's amazing. It's called Conquer Consortium, and they do it's science lessons that are so much fun and amazing, and they're so approachable. Everybody, because it is more like art. And so you feel comfortable, frankly, of plunking around. And the tag that I'd come up with them was this notion of igniting your inner scientist.
Oh,
right.
I like that.
Bringing to life that sense of, sense of curiosity, which I think is really important. But also there comes a time when there's a fine line I'm finding between curiosity and awe. And so that sense of wonder and that just, and that is one reason why I just think there's a really interesting opportunity here for science. I know science and art have always been, is it STEM? Is it STEAM? And I think it's, yes.
Yes. Yes.
It is. STEAM's going to make STEM go.
And see, I could never draw. I could never draw. However, have you all heard of the Doodle? The Doodle where you can make the commercials? Oh, I kind of I said I was going to try that. And I said, do I actually need to know how to draw? Because I have never ever been able to draw. But I never stopped trying because I always like to write and I always like to do things. And Purvi, I think you were right about the older children and meeting them where they are. Sherry agrees too.
Yeah.
Um, and and I like the innovation of all it. And I think businesses really do need to step up and challenge our children and just our world.
So I have a question about that. We keep bringing business in the conversation. How are we going to make business change and think about art in a different way? Because right now they have everyone working from home, and that's what life has given them. So that's a lemon, and they're making the lemonade. What happens once everyone goes back? Are the expectations going to change? Human mind forgets. So how are we going to keep this going?
Well, I think it's going to be very different. I think work as we know it, this whole notion of when it gets back to normal. Okay, one,
That's not good.
they're normal.
I
Normal is
never
not
liked that
great
word.
for a lot of people, for
Yes.
most of the population on this
Yes.
planet. So I would like to kick that word to the curb.
Yes. I never liked that
So,
word.
yeah, I know, me too. And so we don't even know what that's going to look like. In fact, I'm going to tell you right now, as a mom of a 25 and a 21-year-old who are looking as they're starting to get their careers going, what I've been trying to instill in them is you don't even, what you're going to end up doing doesn't even exist right now. I mean, there's a lot of discussion in the future of work about how, I mean, I smile because there's my Fast Company. I was the publisher at Fast Company, and it was the whole notion of the future of work and about, the gig economy. And I think there is going to be more project-based um, work structures. I think there's going to be job sharing. I mean, some of us who have had children, if you had job shared with someone when you came back, a maternity thing, I don't know. I'm really curious to see if real estate can be turned into more community centers and have alternative use, multi-purpose use with cities. I know smart cities means something's wired. I think a smart city is smart use of real estate like that.
Right.
When you have, so many who have been who are homeless and don't have the opportunity.
I'm so glad you brought up, real estate. So I teach PCA as well. So I teach interaction design, and my class I'm teaching is advanced research. And the students are talking about, one group is working on education equity. So San Francisco Unified School District is one of our clients. It's a project for the students. And their challenge is that, of course, the school is giving everyone iPads and computers, but what about Wi-Fi?
Right.
There are seven, there are 7 kids in a house, maybe all in one room.
Exactly.
How is that going to work? And so that was the challenge I put in front of them. I'm like, what about WeWork? And what about places that are shut down? Can you think about making partnerships with all the real estate that's shut down and find a way to have kids go places where there is room? And you're absolutely right. We are going to really have to rethink everything.
Yeah.
And
We're going to have to reimagine everything and the way we have done it before. And I love the ideas and the innovation that you're talking about with WeWork. And now it's only 2 of us here at my house, but I had to upgrade our Wi-Fi, and I bought the pods for 3 of the rooms so we could have them strategically placed around the house to keep the Wi-Fi. And it's only 2 of us here. My son is he's a senior at Howard, and he's home here working, but the work that I have to do, and I think when it comes to equity and when it comes to vulnerability, I don't think that businesses always and leaders really have to think about their employees and the well-being, the whole employee, and what that looks like for them and where they have touch points of vulnerability, because so many people have lost their jobs. How are they going to, once we do move forward, I don't like to say normal, but our situations change, and I think there will be less structures, and all of these businesses won't come back. And there's so many people. This is America, and so many people are homeless. So many children are homeless. We just have a lot that we have to rethink, reimagine, transform, and change the way we see humanity.
And I think a lot of this, because I know in the chat, folks are talking about how a lot of people, a lot of companies think of Google, think of Intel, Salesforce, the list goes on, who's already said, okay, we're not going to have anybody back in the office until maybe July of next year.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'll still be even later. And I think, part of that is a company's shift in culture where we become more trusting. Because there was this time when people thought, okay, if you're working at home, how productive are you being? And I know there's been a lot, interestingly enough, there's been a lot of research about how there are many people who feel that productivity has actually declined. I'm curious if productivity has declined, yet employee happiness or stability has actually maintained as best as it can, or increased. And then I would argue, well, if we're looking at it like a portfolio that's purpose driven,
right,
you're taking care of your most important resource, your person. And if they're going to be healthier and they're going to be able to stay, in the end, it's going to be, getting more things done, but on their terms, in their way. I think we're going to see a shift in management styles. There's been a lot of talk about holacracy, which I still, but I think there's going to be much more collaborative and collective. I know I myself flattened our organization quite a bit. And we used to have this I inherited a call called the executive call, which I couldn't stand that. Sorry, my window's not in a good spot. So I opened it up and said leadership circle.
Yes.
And
yes.
I mean, just even words matter.
Yes.
So taking a look at simple things like that are more expansive, that then give people opportunity to feel more creative.
Yeah.
And more, speaking of creating a culture of safety, of feeling comfortable to come up with crazy ideas, right? And I don't even like that word crazy and idea together, because I think they're all amazing ideas. And, we're in unprecedented times. And so that requires unprecedented acts. So I challenge everybody here to do something that feels a little inside, because there's a really thin line between fear and excitement. And I think, coming up and thinking about different ways, even if it was like, I've got a meeting tomorrow I've got an all staff meeting. I'm right now starting to think about how could we sort of interject, maybe even Mad Libs, because there's different forms of art.
Right.
But you know what I mean? Kind of shaking it up.
Yes.
And as one person, who was it? I think it might've been Sherry, who was talking about how businesses hire artists to shake.
Right. Yeah, that was Sherry, I think, that said that. Please chime in. Give us some questions, or let's have some more dialogue around this.
While people are chiming in, something you said about the happiness meter, I really wanted to add on to that. That's something we keep saying to the hospitals. So even though our workshops are at UCSF and Stanford, very rich, well-known hospitals, they don't pay us anything. We have to do all our fundraising. So we literally let them know that, do you know that by our coming in, your happiness meter is going up? Your patients are happier. Your staff we are making the job easy, because the patients really don't want to be in there, but they want to be doing art. So they literally run, get their poke, and come back. It never happens. The kids are dragging their feet. Who wants to go get poked? Nobody.
Yes,
but because they're doing art, they're like, okay, let's just get done with this. And they run right back to us. So that's the happiness meter, right? So that's what I mean. It's like, how do you make them gauge that?
Wow. See, I think you have to have situational humility, where you realize this is one big challenge that we ourselves cannot take care of. So we need the Purvies and the Kids and Arts Foundation to come in and help. But I also think this is part of the issue and challenge with business and philanthropy.
Yes, I was going to say.
Yeah, it's got to fix. We have got to be able to pay people what they are for
you,
this
you,
great work.
the investment is so critical.
Yeah.
You are investing in the patients, and they should invest in your organization because you are
Amen.
changing the
Exactly.
entire chasm of how people are feeling. Is that even a word? But you understand. I mean, it really, really makes a difference. And I was not a nonprofit because when I started my company, I said I didn't want to be rich, but I had 4 children, and I knew I needed to make money. And it was so difficult because people were always asking me to do things, and I was always running. I kind of thought about that today. How many times I was with my children and I was running to the hospital for a domestic violence victim or something. So I was not the organization that received all of the funding. I was the individual that was still going. And I think it's a disservice when businesses and others don't realize that when you do what you have done, Purvi, with this organization and all of your team, I'm going to try not to get emotional. When you do it from your heart, when you do it because it's important, when you do it because you know it will make a difference to someone else, because you have been there, and people don't see the value of that, I think that's where businesses and entities they focus so much, their values don't line up with their investment.
Thank
and
you for
and
saying
and I
that.
think that is what has to
Yeah.
change. If nothing else, this COVID should have really taught us that our values have to line up with our investment, and the way in which we engage those who are making good faith efforts to change the lives of someone other than themselves.
Yeah, I've long said we are now being called upon to, vote with our feet where we work,
Mm.
vote with our wallet what we consume, and then vote with
Yeah.
our heart what we, invest in. And I want to call attention to something that Mara brought up, and I think it's a really it's a good question, but it's a big question. I know I keep doing this. I'm sorry. It's unprofessional. I don't mean to be. But this whole notion about how art has been seen as enrichment, not essential. How do we flip
Yes.
the notion? I honestly think if we start looking at and you could actually build and realize that this is where it's so critical, because that thinking, that artist's mind, that blank, looking at the blank,
Right.
imagining or playing, um, that how important that is to actually keeping employees happy and healthy. So,
Right.
Mhm.
is right, saving on benefits, coming up with new innovations, coming up with new partnerships, which again result in new
That
innovations.
collaboration. Right. Right.
Collaborations,
Yeah.
exactly. I think that could be one way. I'm not sure exactly what that looks like, um, but I think we'll see more of it now, because there are two things I wanted to touch on. We've got 5 generations now working in some workplaces.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just kind of curious to see if that's going to kind of push that a little bit along, or there's going to be some questions or some urging for people to think differently and act differently. I'm also curious, and this is now sort of shifting more into nurture, but will part of the impact of having more women
Yes, absolutely.
in leadership
Women who
positions?
lead and women, yes, women are really changing the dynamics because we lead with empathy. I'm not saying men don't, but it's an automatic thing. Women nurture, they change, they really grow from the inside. We really do things from the inside. And we can also come together in ways that are beneficial for humanity as a whole. I've been having more international conversations than I've ever had in my entire life. I have been to Singapore virtually. and I've been in Asia so often. Um, and in South Africa with women that had this not been had we not had the pandemic, I, my relationships would look different. And I think you're right, Kate. We really have to get board. And I also wanted to say this really quickly. I used to be a school board official for the city of Trenton. And one of the things when it comes to education, and Purvi, you talked about this earlier, art was always the first. Art and music were always the first things to go. The things that made us the happiest when I was in school, we go to choir and we'd be singing, and I was like, are you kidding me? They took the things that really brought us joy.
Yeah.
And we have to slow down and not do that.
The thing I think we can do with regards to getting more women in these positions, because one, we all know, we saw, probably everyone either saw or heard or got wind of that Forbes article where they demonstrated that the healthiest countries were all led by women.
Yeah, saw that.
Is when we're looking at companies, and I know there's a lot of movement to try and get more companies onto boards. Well, I think one of the changes that we're going to start seeing in business moving forward is two roles that are going to be really key. Chief People Officers,
yes,
CHROs, because they're going to be taking care of your most valued resource, your people. And the other is marketing.
Yes.
So CMOs.
Mm-hmm.
And I've often thought that, so often in a board, you're trying to get the quant skills, the finance, the CFO, the COO, the operation, the very linear.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious to see if in this next phase, moving forward, if we started to reach out, and there are fewer women in those fields, and one day it'll be great. We're all trying to make inroads there. But the fact of the matter is there are a lot of women that are CMOs, and there are a lot of women that are chief people and chief, human resource people. Wouldn't it be terrific if we started seeking for those resources on a board? Because those are going to be the two dramatic drivers, I think, moving forward. To that end, maybe that would be a way that we reverse that flip that we were just talking about, where art, isn't seen as important, or the marketing department gets cut, or, you know what I mean? It'll be interesting to see if that can shift. And it would then also be interesting to see how that impacts the overall health of an organization.
But don't you think that, that whole child in treatment, that same thing needs to be in business world as well? About the whole, what is the purpose of your business that you are in, and then make sure you're being purpose driven in that way outside as well, inside and outside. I think that's what's missing right now. Everything is all about me and all about numbers and all about, bottom lines and everything. And then the purpose is an afterthought. Can we not move that part of the business from day one? I think that's what's missing.
I totally agree. I've been having, of course, with all of there's a lot of racial equity. I've been getting a lot of calls for that. It's quite interesting because when people think about diversity, yes, race is very important, but diversity is like a really big thing. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking about diversity of thought and perspective and presence, not just race. And I think we kind of I think people got scared and they started throwing out statements, all of these corporations. And I said, okay. So that sounds cute, but that's like, you want to do that because you think there's like a moment.
Yeah.
But you really need to do things intentionally and think about the totality of what you really want to change with organizations, and how is that going to make the people, all of them, better. Everyone needs to get better, because if you just fix one segment in a business and in a corporation, then the other one is slowly, so the scale becomes unbalanced, and then you just have another crisis. So I think that all of the things that we have said, I really think we have to think about the ways in which we invest in our future, invest in our make sure our values line up with how we want to make a difference, not just in the corporate space, but for humanity overall. Um, I think about, unfortunately, my latter days, and what do I want to be known for? How do I want people to remember me? And I always say that I was feisty, that I was fearless, but that I fought hard for humanity, and
Wow,
that I was kind of crazy every once in a while. But I just think we have to do better.
agreed.
I also do think that this COVID period, where we all are in our each other's homes and lives, that I do think, I don't know, I think because I don't think people are all going to be going back to work the way they did.
Mm-mm.
I think, and I could be wrong. Um, I just think there are going to be so many structures that we don't even know exist right now. And I think the way these companies, these established companies who have a kind of a classic shareholder idea, right, where it's all about the profit, that's beginning to shift. And it's beginning to shift because um, shareholders are demanding it, but talent is demanding it. They're not going to be able to get the best and the brightest. They're not going to be able to get, which then means they're not going to be able to get, they're not going to be able to build products. They won't be able to build products that look like their people, that look like their
Right.
customers. So they'll be incredibly on every single rung, completely irrelevant. And we're not there yet, but I think it's starting to sting for some. And unfortunately, that's what's going to happen. And as soon as I had written the chat line, the whole notion of triple bottom line,
Yeah.
planet, purpose, or people, planet, profit. Um, I think, I believe that we're going to start having more of that. And my hope one day for the planet is that when you say investing, of course, it's going to be a given. It's going to be an impact, purpose driven investment. When you say
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneur, of course, you don't need to say social because that's going to be in that DNA.
Yeah.
And when you say a corporation, they're all going to be purpose. Now, that is
Mm-hmm.
a long ways away.
Long ways away.
I
Yeah.
know, but I'm going to hold on to that true north, you know?
Yeah.
And so that means not necessarily shaming and blaming when people, I mean, I think it's okay to call people out when they're blatantly greenwashing and saying, great, I have a diverse board because I have one woman.
That
I'll say
that
it. It's usually one white woman. And that, I mean, we kind
or
of,
the one black person that they add, and I'm like,
yes,
I'm
exactly.
like, really? Look, do you want us to clap because you got
Yep.
that little brown person? Oh, or the white woman? Oh, and everybody else is white. I'm just like,
Yeah.
oh yeah,
Well,
bless your hearts.
if anyone can do it, Kate, it's going to be you. So
Yes.
we're going to
Thank
look up
you,
to
Irvi.
you. And same, Sunny, is like, you're going to kick some ass for sure. I shouldn't be saying
Well, well, let me tell you, Kate has given me. It's like we met, we immediately connected, and she is such an ally, such a support, such an amazing woman, mentor, a friend. I watch her and I feel fearless because she has thrust me into things and in the spotlight in such a way that, you know, I am so humbled. And then I got to meet you, Pervy, and this cause that, really means a lot to me personally. And I just think though COVID made clear-eyed connections and genuine relationships that are like really lasting, and true. And I think when we go together, we go as we say with the Women's Business Collaborative, we go faster, we go further, and when we pull together as women, and there's always some men in there that's saying, yeah, I'm going too. I'm going with them. I'm going with them. I'm with them. And I think this organization that you created, as I was in the art room and I was watching, I was like, oh, wow. Um, as I said, it's been a rough day for me today. I have been crying all day long. I found out that I lost the other mother, my mom's very best friend,
Mm,
this morning.
I'm sorry.
Actually, she passed last week, and somebody was trying to get in touch with me, but I was not well. So I was like, oh, I got to pull it together for tonight. But I've been in my room crying all day. My son has literally pulled his laptop, his chair, and everything in my room. He's been working from my room to watch over me because children are everything. We do everything for them. They make us stronger and better. And I thank you for what you created, Purvi. Um, you are amazing, phenomenal. I'm so humbled and gracious to be here with both of you and Kate for thinking of me.
Mm.
I just can't thank you enough. Even you didn't even freak out when I said, okay, so I came down with Bell's palsy. And you were like, yeah, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay.
We got this.
Yeah, we got this. We can still have this conversation.
Well,
Um,
I just want to say thank you. I know it's 7 o'clock, and whoever needs to go can go. We can keep talking and
I'm going to turn the
talking.
lights on because it is obviously dark where I am. Again, I apologize.
Well, I
There.
thank you so much for connecting us with Sunny. And Sunny, thank you. Kate, thank you so much for being part of our 4-day, virtual summit fundraiser. It is a fundraiser, so we were lucky that someone donated so that people could, we could make this free, but that doesn't pay our bills. So be generous to donate. Buy art. We have our kids and artist art. So and a lot of the art is selling. So please do and share if you think everything that you're hearing and watching and listening. Share on your social media. We are at kidsandart.org and hashtag is AHI2020.
Well,
they
thank
need
you
it.
so much.
Remember, wherever you are, donate, please, because people always think this stuff happens like for free. People have to give up their time and their services, and this is a lot. Thank you, Perfect, so much for
Thank you both.
everything. Kate,
Thank
love
you
you
both.
much.
Thank you both. Thank you very much.
Thank
And
you, everybody.
sorry, go ahead,
I was
please.
just going to say thank you, everybody. And Cecile, hello. Love a CAO.
I know.
Come
CAO.
on.
All
I'm
right.
loving that.
Let's go. Okay, so we have to have one of those in every company. And they have to have a room. Pervy, they can call you, they
Perfect
can
work on it.
hire you, and they have and the staff. I'm going to have to suggest that the staff will have to have sessions. We won't call them vulnerability sessions, but we'll say you can color outside the lines.
I'm in. Sign me up. I'll adorn the CAO very well. Trust me. Well, thank you, everyone. We have at 8 o'clock DJ party coming up. Last night we had a VR DJ and it was amazing. So please don't miss that. Yep, you guys are getting started.
Yeah,
8 o'clock. Come back again, please. And it's going to be really fun. It's going to be a lot of time. Get your favorite beverage and join us again. And ladies, thank you so much. And everyone who's listening, thank you very much for joining in.
Thank you
Reach
all.
out and say hello.
Have a great night.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, everyone. Good night. See you.